Привет.
Hello.
Servus.
Marhaba.
Hola.
Hello.
I'm inspired that there's so many people working to accomplish the same goal of creating a connected future.
By having students lead clubs on campus directly supported by Google developers, that's the best way to reach out to students.
It's really inspirational always to hear about members of the community who echo your values and echo your beliefs.
I've been listening more than I've been speaking, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because I'm just getting all these ideas.
Google, it needs to reach a wider audience and be more relatable as a company, and I think Google is one of the brands that is very good at doing that.
Hi everyone, welcome to the workshop today. Today we're gonna have the solution design series, and we're gonna kick off with the first workshop on problem identifications. So, who are we today to hear? So we have me, Evelyn. I'm the DSC lead at UT Dallas. We also have Alex and Erin and Lilani and Liyun. Please introduce yourself with everyone.
Hey y'all, nice to see you here today virtually. I'm on the DSC lead at University of Central Florida. I'm happy to be working with you, and let's have some fun.
Hi everyone, I'm Erin. I'm the DSC lead from Mount San Antonio College. And shout out in the YouTube chat if any of y'all are here. It's nice to see you all.
Awesome. We also have Liyun and Lilani from DSC Portland State University. Let's give them a big welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leilani. I am from Portland State University. I am the vice president of our DSC. We're still waiting on Leon. He should be here soon, and he is our DSC lead. And everybody say hello to Danny. Most of you might know him. Some of you might not. Hi, Danny.
Howdy from Austin, y'all. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to be here to help introduce Solution Challenge, answer some questions, but most importantly, make sure that y'all have a lot of fun with today's event. So buckle up. It's going to be a couple hours, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to connecting with y'all and seeing you later in the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny, for being here with us. And just to keep you remember that we are going to have this workshop in more than over an hour. So make sure you have your charger ready, you have some water beside you, and yep, let's have some fun with it. So for our today workshop goals, we will walk you through to understand the Solution Challenge 2021 focus and judging criteria. Then we want to help you how to define and limit the scope of the problem that you want to tackle. The event goal is pretty broad, right? So we're going to help you to narrow it down. And then we're going to give you some kind of new perspective on how to look into the problem by identifying the potential market and users. So for our agenda today, Danny going to talk about the focus and judging criteria first. And then we're going to have Erin and Lilani to, help you to identify the right problem to solve. After that, we're going to have a group activities where you are randomized into a group of 4 using the breakout group feature of Google Meet that Danny going to drop the link later. After the group activity 1, we're going to have a short break of 5 minutes for everyone, to recharge. And then we're going to come back with the second half where I'm going to walk you through. I and Alex going to show you how to understand the market and users. Then we have the second group activities where you apply all the knowledge that you learned previously. And then we have more Q&A, promotion events, and especially swag opportunities at the end of this workshop. So make sure you are ready until that part. So for the first part, Danny, can you go back on stage and, let the participant know what is the Solution Challenge this year focusing on and what judging criteria that they need to be aware about?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me up, Evelyn. I'll turn it back over to you in just a few minutes. For now, y'all are going to be here with me learning more about the focus and judging criteria of Solution Challenge. So this year, right, what we've done is we've added a new requirement when it comes to Solution Challenge. We're asking y'all to identify a problem in your local community and use one of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to narrow your focus and find a problem in your local community, right? So on screen, you'll see the 17 sustainable goals. In the chat, we'll drop the link for that for y'all specifically, so you can go in on your own and check out more details of each of these. I'm not going to go into the specifics of all of these, but for a few examples, we have on screen here like no poverty, right? We have life below water, things of that nature. These are designed to help you learn a little bit more about what people in these categories may be facing, right? Before COVID and after COVID. What these guidelines are going to do is help kickstart y'all's ideas and potential solutions you may want to solve. Remember, in the Solution Challenge this year, you are going to be required to address a problem which is tied to at least one or more of these 17 goals. So please take a moment to go to this website, understand all of them, and to not just pick one, and jump on it, right? We really want y'all to brainstorm, think of different ideas, and get creative, right? Ultimately, this is y'all's opportunity to work on any project you want for a really cool Google competition. Now, let's jump into the judging criteria, because this is where I think in my mind, y'all will get a little bit more of understanding as to how to approach this particular Solution Challenge. So you'll notice two different points of judging criteria: impact and technology. Obviously, this is out of 100 points, but the impact section is weighted a little heavier, right? You'll see 60 points comes from impact, where your technology implementation is actually a total of 40 points. So on screen, you'll see all of these specific judging criterias. I'll just highlight a couple of the points. I won't bore y'all and read all of these, right? Does the entry establish a clear challenge focused on one or more of the 17 goals? How effectively does the solution address the challenge identified by the team? Is there evidence of a next step? Is there evidence that the solution has been thoroughly tested with users, right? Is there evidence the solution was iterated based upon that user feedback? So what I want to stop here and is just kind of double click, if I could, on a few pieces. You'll notice that 4 and 5 are specifically talking about getting user feedback while going back and taking that user feedback and implementing it. One of the things that is traditionally not hit during the academic project building process is testing these solutions, right, with real users and actually iterating real feedback. So what we want to do is provide that opportunity for y'all. So make sure that even if you do test it, you listen to these end users as well, or else you may lose very valuable points. Awesome. So we have some FAQs here. Can my solution solve a problem outside of the scope of the 17 sustainable developer goals? Answer, like you saw in the judging criteria, it's required for the solution to solve at least one or more. So please take a moment and make sure to click the 17 sustainable guideline goals and make sure your project is tied to them. You will lose points if you do not tie it to one of our goals. Given the implications of social distancing, our ability to test users was impacted. Will the judges consider this? While we, understand that things change, our judges will keep it into mind. But there are some things you could do to potentially still be able to test your specific solutions. So don't be afraid to reach out to people in your community, perhaps a professor or a campus friend, right? You can potentially test these, albeit in a virtual capacity. Finally, I would really encourage y'all to go to this website and read over all of the frequently asked questions. Also, I would encourage y'all that once you register, please take advantage of this additional um, resource we have called Partheon. This is going to be a online forum where you are connected with Google developer experts from across the world. We have 100 Google developer experts who have expert level knowledge in different skill sets, right? So like Android, Firebase, TensorFlow, you name it. We have mentors there to help you. So please, if you're looking for additional help, grow your skills, maybe get some feedback on something you're looking to work on, highly recommend you join this platform as well. We're not going to force you to join this platform, but pro tip, take every resource at your disposal and make use of it, right? We have so many resources connected to Solution Challenge, including the amazing people here today from your local DSC communities who are hosting this event and going to put on amazing workshops for y'all to continue to learn and connect outside of this just one event. Awesome. So now we're going to bring up Leilani and Aaron to the stage, and they're going to talk about identifying the right problem. So welcome back, Leilani and Aaron. Let's give them a round of applause in the chat, y'all.
All right, thank you, Danny.
Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, how do we identify the right problems? Seems like kind of a big task.
So identifying the right problem is a really important thing, especially if you're on a time limit for this challenge of 2 months. And you obviously need a problem first. Thinking of a problem straight off the bat can be hard, so we're here to show you how to divide between good and bad examples and helping you have a thinking process for a good example. So a couple of, I guess, bad examples first. We'll start with broad ideas. Broad ideas aren't really good ideas to build upon because you have a theme, let's say for this neuroscience application, but what specifically are you going to apply your project to in terms of neuroscience? Is it brain development, cognitive science, something like that? So you want to make sure your project idea is as specific as possible to be able to branch off your idea easier without it going too off topic. Another thing I think is really important is that they shouldn't be unrelated to obviously the UN goals. Let's take an example, Google Maps for the moon. It sounds really cool, and it is a really cool project idea, but in what way is it related to the UN goals? Or how does it apply to community involvement or improvement? It's also really difficult to do unless you have access to moon data, which leads us to our next point, in that your project idea shouldn't push the time constraints that you have. Remember, you only have 2 months. And let's say, for an example, we have an automotive accident detection system that you think about. This idea is actually not a bad idea, considering a lot of organizations and companies are looking towards doing this and would apply to the well-being and infrastructure's UN goal. However, we'd imagine this would take a long time, considering the amount of data you have to test it against in real roads. We only have 2 months, guys. All right, so a couple of good examples that I think is that they should be as specific as possible, in that you are able to build upon these examples. For example, a book recommendation app. This is pretty specific, and it's not just a book app, and narrows it down to what the user actually prefers or wants. You can easily branch off this idea with due time, and it even applies to goal number 4, which is quality education. So you want to also make sure that your project has room for growth. There's no need for it to be scalable right away, but if you can't think about how your project can grow, that's completely fine. But if you want plans for improvements with your project to enable it to grow, as said by Danny in the judging rubrics. A third thing that you want to do is that you want to be ambitious, but you want to be realistic with your project. For example, let's say you think of a carbon footstep calculator. You can grow this app like crazy, and you can put it in the web, put it on devices, put it in your daily lives, etc. And there's definitely room for growth for this one. But it's pretty difficult to do a project without help, and so that's why we're here. As leads, we want you to take your project to the next level, and so we'll work to provide a network that you can use to help in developing your project. However, this help must be feasible. For example, you can't ask us to try to get Sundar Pichai to mentor you due to a very ambitious project, but we'll try our best to connect you with great mentors. So, how should you start thinking about your problem in the first place? Your project should be working towards supporting a UN goal, but it doesn't have to solve it completely. We're not asking you to cure cancer here. Instead, try and look towards your local communities. What do people complain about the most? Or what do you notice that needs change within your network? Make sure you could build a project, but then also relate it to a UN goal. As such, make sure to network with those involved in your problem. For example, is your project related to parks development for good health and well-being, which is goal number 3? Maybe you can reach out to the city council and to learn more about the problem and see if your project can apply to helping out with it. Last but not least, as you're developing the project, you want to make sure you can apply the judging criteria closely to it. You want to get as many points as possible from the judges, and they've given you almost the full guidelines as to what they're looking for in your project. If you want more information about the target of each UN goal, as well as the background on UNICEF's effort to build upon the goals the UN has made, utilize the Parthian app shown here in the GIF to research more about your project. Start with this platform to research more info about what exactly the UN has in mind for their goals. And I'll pass it off to Leilani.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. Yeah, I just wanted to add also that it might seem daunting, like with the UN goals, but there are a lot of them. And I think a lot of project ideas that maybe you've already had in the past could definitely be maybe just tweaked a little bit and applied to the goals, because there are a lot of them. And the goal is really just to, find something that can help your community in some way. So yeah, thank you for that information, Erin. And now let's move on to how to generate project ideas from your interests. So your interests here are going to be whichever UN goal that you pick, or maybe UN goals if you pick 2 of them or 3. And yep, next slide. So I've kind of made like a little framework for you guys, for you all to think about how to narrow the scope once you've settled on a UN goal area. So the first step really is trying to think of a problem that you want to solve. It doesn't have to be super specific at first. It can be kind of a general problem. And you really just want to write down a problem statement, and write down the problem and try to write down what exactly is causing the problem. And you might be thinking Leilani, I know what the problem is. The oceans are filled with garbage. That's what I want to tackle. Why do I have to write it down? I know exactly what the problem is. But I think it can help to just write it out and clearly write what's causing it. So maybe the cause of that problem, the oceans being full of garbage, is that people don't have an organized way to organize cleanup projects. So writing a problem statement can just help identify the causes like that. And step 2 is just writing down a list of ways that you could possibly help contribute to a solution to that problem. So this is the creative phase. This is where you can get your solution challenge team together and just brainstorm, open up a Google Doc and just throw out all your ideas. Maybe it could be app ideas, anything goes, crazy ideas, whatever, because you can refine them and change them later, and you might land on something cool. And then finally, you want to do some market research, look at other solutions that are similar to the ideas that you generated in your list, and just try to research your problem more, if there's, difficult parts about solving the problem. And then once you've done a little bit of research, just go back to that idea list Look at the ideas, maybe modify some of them based on the research you've done, eliminate some ideas, and then select ideally one of your ideas to tackle, maybe 2 or 3 if they're like smaller ideas that you can wrap up into one project, but probably just one since we do have pretty limited time for this challenge. All right, so I did come up with a little example for you guys. So the example of disinformation. So what do I mean by this? So I've written a problem statement. So by disinformation, I'm kind of talking about like misinformation on the internet. So the problem is that many people struggle to distinguish true from false information from things that they read and watch on the internet. And this leads to misinformed people. And so I've found that one thing that can help when you're writing a problem statement is to kind of look for root words or verbs in the problem statement. And this is a pretty obvious example, so you might not have to do this for every problem. But if you have like a complex problem, it might help. So the words that I found here were struggle and distinguish. So the root of the problem is that people are struggling to distinguish true and false information. Pretty obvious, but it might help in some cases. So once you've done that, step 2, if I could get the next slide. Awesome, thank you. Step 2 is just to write that list of ideas. Sorry. Yes, step 2 is just to write that list of ideas. So I had a couple ideas here. So possibly an online community where people can like talk about disinformation sources that they've seen and like learn about it together as a community. Maybe a Facebook plugin that helps people recognize disinformation on Facebook. So it would be like an overlay to Facebook, or just a web browser plugin in general that helps people recognize disinformation in different places. So some tips for this stage is to kind of look at different ways that the problem occurs, or different places that it occurs, different communities that it affects. So for this example, you know, Facebook was like a sub-community on the internet that disinformation affects. So I looked at that, which is different from, you know, the internet as a whole. And then finally, do some research. Step 3. Thank you. Finally, do some research, modify, eliminate ideas, and then finally pick one. So I found that there's already kind of an online community resource when I did research on this idea. So I just kind of scratched that off. I didn't want to recreate something that was already made. And then I found that there were a lot of tools for Twitter for recognizing like propaganda bot accounts and stuff. But I didn't find many for Facebook, so I thought this might be a good idea. And then for my last idea, there was already like a web browser plugin for video sources, but not for like articles and text sources. So I just modified that idea to be more specific for text sources based on my research. So ultimately, I picked the Facebook idea. And by the way, this idea I'm not using, so if you guys are interested in it, it might be a good one. So yeah, basically I'm going to, or do we have Abdallah here yet? No, all right, so let's talk about engaging with your community. All right, so engaging with your community is really important. The past steps that we just talked about might seem daunting if you like don't have any ideas at all yet, if this is the first you've heard about the Solution Challenge and you know all the UN goals are new to you and you're like, wow, I haven't thought about this at all yet. And so I think engaging with your community can be a really good like place to start. So a good place to start is just to find someone and just start talking to them. You know, tell them, hey, there's this technology project that I'm a part of. It's a humanitarian project to use technology to solve a problem, and I want to address, you know, the issue of poverty or clean oceans or whatever the interest area it is that you have. So some examples of people you can ask, if there's a professor that you have a good relationship with, an advisor, local businesses, nonprofit organizations that are ideally related to the UN goals you're interested in. These can be really good people to talk to. And even just friends and family. If you are still, kind of shy, you can start with friends and family, test out some of these questions on them, and then maybe go to your greater community. And so some example questions here we have is, where do you spend most of your time at work? And this can be virtual too. So if their job is fully virtual, this is a question that still applies. And what do you find most difficult in your job? And what tools do you wish you had available? So these questions just start getting at, what are people dealing with problems in their jobs and lives? And, this will start getting you information about how you might be able to help them with technology. All right, so we're about to get into our first group activity here, but I do have one quick tip for you guys. So, the max amount, the max number of teammates for the Solution Challenge is 4. And we recommend having 4 members on your team, just so you can have as many smart people in there as possible. And so in order to kind of get familiar with teamwork, we're going to assign you guys random team groups, and we're going to move on to our first activity. So I will pass it on to Leon here.
Hi everyone. So before our group activity 1, I would like to say, based on the good examples and the bad examples from Aaron, and also like a good strategy from Leilani, I will say, in this stage, it's just a start point, so you don't have to worry about your crazy or weird idea, right? So basically, the idea of this activity um, is to try to list 3 to 5 like feasible, reasonable ideas from your crazy and weird idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to clarify before everyone get confused, so Danny gonna drop the Google Meet link for everyone so that you all can join your breakout room, and then for each of the group you will see the room number for you, which will corresponding to the number of the folders of your team in the Google Drive. And to access the Google Drive, you can use the link and the QR code that you can see on the screen right now. So scan this one and access your group using the Google Meet link that Danny gonna drop in the chat right now. And yes, and just like Lee Yun has already said, please, we give you the framework so that you can have some starting point, but don't let it to limit yourself. Just go crazy with whatever ideas that you have and then start narrowing it down later. All right? So everyone just comment in the chat after you already access your breakout room so that we know if you need any help or we are ready. And in the meantime, if you have any question, just feel free to drop it in the chat as well.
All right, everyone, let's go ahead and jump into the second part of this event today. So Danny, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So first, if Evelyn wants to come up and kind of kick off the potential market and user slide, and then I'll go ahead and roll right into the next part.
Okay, welcome everyone to come back. I hope you all has enjoyed your first activity. I heard a lot of great ideas have been, like blooming up. So let's get started on the second part of this workshop. So, just a quick reminder that when it comes to, like generate ideas, don't limit yourself, right? Great ideas don't usually come when you start just train thought something like, oh, I know how to build an app using like technology X and Y, so I will come up with an idea that, like using it. In contrast, you will more often to, like generate some ideas or problem when you are interested in it first. So just like Danny and Erin and Lani have been stating it at the beginning of this workshop, that you just like, think about what you care about, what you're interested in, and then you pick up the necessary skill along the way, right? So don't just like what you did in the first activity. We want you to spend your energy to looking into the problem that you actually care about and you love to work on. And it's our part to help you and your team to learn new skills and provide certain resource to support your projects. So then after you have, like after the activity one in the first part, you already got some kind of problem that you want to tackle. But how do you know which one would, like has more opportunities for you to deliver an impactful solution? This is where you need to wearing some kind of like business hat and think about factors like market users. So let's, Alex, please let's take the role from here and walk you through about this part.
All right, so first, understanding markets. When I say that, some of you might not know what that means, but market is like thinking about your users, who's going to use the solution that you're going to create, and those people that are having the problem. So not all markets are the same, but how do we know which market is better than others? On this slide are just a few factors that you might want to consider. First, size. Is this market too specific or too large for your solution to tackle? You need to find the sweet spot for your project and something that your team feels is a reasonable market and something that you can create a solution for that is attainable. The second part is acquisition. What does the process look like of generating customers, but really more about users? And how do you maintain that user base? And the third item on this slide is the solution scalable, kind of? That's what growth talks about. What does the future look like for your solution or application look like? That's something that you need to consider before moving forward with a potential solution. So going back to the judging criteria again, part of creating an effective solution for the solution challenge is the ability to solve problems using solutions that could potentially continue after the submission deadline. We're not trying to encourage you guys to create projects that you're just going to submit, and then after that it just kind of dies off. This is also kind of entrepreneurial, that hopefully maybe you and your team can create a solution that you can actually apply in the real world, maybe after the solution challenge deadline. The way to do this is to consider some of the main points on the previous slides: understand your market, potential friction for users, growth and scalability of your solution. Sorry, Danny, I went a little bit too slow there, but on the last slide it said, is there evidence of a next step? Does a team display a plan for future extension if they were to continue? That's all that I wanted to quickly read off. You can go to the next slide now. So stakeholder does not equal stakeholder. A cool little graphic here to kind of explain what we're going to talk about on the next slide. So when it comes to the people factor in your problem, your users won't be the only group you need to consider. You also want to understand who will be your competitors, those trying to solve the same problem as you. And you only can understand this by seeing what other solutions are already available and then see if you can offer a better one or a more effective one. And also talking to those people, those potential users, talking to those people who may benefit from the solution that you're trying to create can also give you clues to how you can develop your solution. So this leads right into the second part of the workshop and the bulk of our activity 2, which is doing market research. You need to develop a deeper understanding about your problem and the people who are impacted. A few quick Google searches can get you started. So look for facts, info, available solutions, news, trends, and anything else that might assist you in your research process. So go ahead, start searching. It's not too hard. We got the power of Google in our hands. And go ahead and make sure to utilize that Python platform to get more information about the target of each UN goal and the efforts that are already going on for each of the goals that you might want to tackle. So during your market research, try to figure out who your users might be. Think about their characteristics, like their demographics, age groups, jobs, etc., as a starting point. But don't let it distract you from the more important factors, like their problems and their frustrations. When you try to solve a problem for them, think about what they are trying to achieve and what's blocking them from reaching their goals so that your solution can actually meet their needs and solve a problem. And then once you think you have all those items nailed down, test them. Document assumptions, revisit your design phase, and then test. Test with users. And that brings us to our next slide, which is back to our judging criteria again. So let's look back at the judging criteria with what I just mentioned. We have 2 items that parallel those topics, which is number 4, which is there evidence that the solution has been thoroughly tested with real users? Real users being the people that are impacted by the problem that you're trying to solve. And then number 5 is there evidence that the solution was iterated upon based on user feedback? What does that mean? When you tested it with the users and the users gave you feedback to improve your solution, that you listened to that feedback and made improvements to your solution. So those are 2 huge parts of impact, because if you just blindly make a solution and you don't listen to the users, there's a likely chance that your solution is not going to be very effective.
Yeah, just one more thing that I want to, emphasize here, that you can see the iterate part. So when it's come to solving the problem, just don't think about it like a straight way. You go from problem, you go to solution, you go to test, and you go to deliver. It's more of an iterative process. So you got the problem, you think it might be the thing that you may want to help your users. You plan it out, got some solution, offer it to your users. If they feel okay, this is not correctly the thing that is troubling me, you will need to go back and starting again, probably from your problem as well. You want to dive into the underlying issue here, the actual pain point, not just some kind of mere symptoms that the user is having. So that is where the part when this slide here is talk about you have to document all of your assumptions, because you will see that when you do market research, there's a lot of things that you will note it down just as your assumptions. You're not talking to your user yet, and you will need to test this out later when you got some feedback from your users. Okay, this is the correct thing that's going on that may not be available online or any other source. So just to emphasize the point of Alex there, just always make sure to get feedback and listen to your users.
Yeah, and one question that I saw in the chat before we begin our activity, well, I got 2 now. One is, what about if you're obsessed with the problem? I'm not really exactly sure how to mention or how to respond to that, but if I think I'm understanding the right way, I guess you want to pick a problem that you're passionate about, right? So don't just, I guess, put a lot of thought into the solution that you're going to actually move forward with. Pick a issue among those UN goals that you actually feel passionate about. Maybe it's something that has affected you personally or people around you, and maybe that passion is going to help you create a more effective solution.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alex that it's okay to get obsessed with your problem, because it's the thing that we want you to know. We want you to love the thing that you're working on. We don't want you to just to try to solve some very big issue that you don't even care about. But just be mindful, you can be obsessed with problem, but don't marriage to the solution that you're trying to design to. So there's a lot of ways to design a solution. Problem will stick there, but there's a lot of ways to solve it, but with different impact, different, like result it can be. So it's fine to get obsessed with your problem that you're trying to solving, but don't get married to any specific idea at the beginning. Try to test it out, see how it's working out, plan it out, and then decide which path you want to go down later. I'm gonna add to that. And I think we got one more question. The second one is, what is the best way to deciphering between constructive criticism from the user and the criticism that may not be useful? I really like this question because, one of the things, I'm a UX student, so one of the things that we learn is probably is not always we don't know what we don't know, right? So the user may have some assumption about some kind of a solution that will help them, but it not really the thing like that. So for example, you always can set out a goal, the resolution at the beginning of the year. You say, okay, this year I can do this, I can lose 10 pounds, but by the end of the day, you cannot make it. You have too much workload and so and such. So it's just to kind of point that you don't really actually understand it. It's not always the case that the user is always right, but you want to compare all of the users you're talking to. One of the things is that you may try to interview lots of people in the population that you're trying to design a solution for, and then point out some kind of specific sharing problem that they're thinking. It's just not problem with one people or the thought of one people. It's more the overall population. What is the thing that they are sharing? What kind of frustration they feel the same? It's more the thing that's gonna be the right problem rather than just focusing on one user as well. Alex, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think this question kind of goes hand in hand with anything, any application, any service. There's always going to be people that give constructive criticism and people that just give criticism that's criticism. So it's just quality assurance and anything. There's always going to be the people that are just upset and they just want to say that they're upset and they don't really give you any way that you can fix it. So unfortunately, sometimes and this goes for kind of anything. Sometimes you'll get criticism where you literally cannot do anything with it. So kind of going into Danny's question is, and because this goes hand in hand with the question that I'm answering, is how do you recommend getting actionable feedback from users? Is there a list of questions you recommend for us to ask? The first part is getting actionable feedback. So the difference between just regular criticism and constructive criticism is that with constructive, you can actually make changes to your solution and make it more effective. So getting that actionable feedback from users is actually going to help your team improve your project. And in terms of getting a list of questions, I think that's going to depend on what solution you have and what project you're working on. But I think one question that's pretty universal that you can ask is just getting a list of their frustrations, right? And then once you get all these frustrations from users, and then you can start seeing the common theme of frustration, then you know where to look, you know what things to circle on your list of things to revisit, redesign, test again, and things like that.
Yeah, I would want to add when it comes to getting feedback from users, there are a lot of ways to get feedback. One of the most two popular way is to do user interview and to using feedback. So each of them gonna have different, purpose and pros and cons. For example, for survey, you can get feedback from a lot of people because you don't need to meet them one by one and then get question follow up. But for survey, you will be getting more quantitative data, which means some kind of fixing how frequent they use something or what kind of thing that they might just some kind of short question that you cannot follow up. But if you want to dive deeper into the behavior that they might got and just to go into the underlying problem, user interview may be more efficient, so you can ask follow up to see what exactly the thing that is troubling them. And like Alex had mentioned, there is no solid set of questions that can be applicable for everything because each of the question is to help you understand the users, the specific group of user for your specific problem in the specific context that you are proposing. So there is no universal question for all of this, but just try to keep it, let's say, objective. Don't lead the question with something that you might think would be a solution. Try to, try to be as objective, general, probably like try to ask about them, not like your products, your solution as well. That'll be the thing that I want to like highlight for it.
Yeah, if we could bring Leilani up on the stage real quick, because she definitely has a couple things to add on some of the questions that we just mentioned, and to kind of give a little bit more insight.
Yeah, so just on Danny's question about the list of questions to ask, I think that, in the problem definition stage, when you're working on talking to your community about problems that they're experiencing, like we talked about earlier, we do actually have a list of some like general questions that you can ask once you've identified a specific problem that you know that your community or someone in your community is facing. And we will introduce that soon. It's actually part of a challenge that we're going to challenge you guys to go out into your community and do. So we'll get to that in a bit.
Okay, so I don't see any other question for now, so I think we can move on to our next group activities. So for the group activity number 2, we're gonna go back to our previous group and try to bring what Alex had introduced us about the market and user and apply it to evaluate what kind of like ideas that your groups had generated in the first group activities. And then we're gonna pick out one of them. You will find in the folders of the materials that is a template doc for the second activities where you're gonna try to elaborate on what do you think about the idea that your team has already generated and pick it out. Sorry. So probably like Leilani, do you want to, give some quick tips in here that you might, share with the teams? Because I think this is a very great advice, not only applicable for this group activities, but in, like the general context of the solution challenge competition as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we definitely have some advice for like team management, and I think we're going to get into this more in our next event because we are going to do a series of these solution challenge readiness events. But just a quick tip is to elect a leader in your team. So ideally you'll have like a team of 4, and it's just a good idea, we think, from the research that we've done about like small team management, to elect a leader and maybe even rotate this leadership role if there's multiple people on your team that want to gain the experience of leadership in a team, because it's a really valuable skill to develop. But it's also important to remember that, a leader is not the boss of the team. They're not there to make all the decisions for everyone and like control and micromanage everything. You still want to make decisions as a team and, talk to everybody. But the leader's role is really to help coordinate the group. If you have like different subgroups in your team, like, one part of your team working on the front end and one part of your team working on the back end, the leader can help bring those two parts of the team together. And so in order to practice this in our next group activity, if you want, you can try to elect a team leader and let that person kind of just guide the discussion if you'd like.
All right, so let's move to the second activities now. You can get all like access to the old Google Meets thing, and it's gonna be best if Danny can drop it again in the chat for everyone to access. And see you all on the other side. Hi everyone, welcome back and hope you all enjoyed your second group activities. And now let's head to more resource. First of all, we're gonna have Alex please coming in and introduce about the very great resource that your chapter is offering tomorrow. Okay, let's move on.
All right. So for those of you who are in a DSC who are interested in participating in this year's solution challenge, but you have an idea and you have a strong grip of all the things that we went over today of doing the research, identifying a problem, and everything that we talked about with getting user feedback. If that, if that's your strong part, but maybe the weak part is the technical, then this series that DSC UCF is for you. We are doing a 6-week series starting this Sunday. It's going to be every Sunday except for one weekend. We're going to do it on a Friday instead. I believe that's the weekend of Valentine's Day, so we're doing it on a Friday instead. So the first session is front-end design with HTML and CSS. We're trying to make every single session to appeal to both beginners and experts. So we're going to keep it fresh. We're not going to do it like a lecture. We're going to do it hands-on, coding, follow along, and to create a full stack web app by the end of our 6-week series. We're going to give you a ton of resources to learn ahead of time and to keep learning. In fact, some of our resources are on this slide right here. If you go to dscucf.com/e/resources, you can see a document that we're going to be updating throughout the duration of our series of YouTube videos, free courses, things like that that you can use to maybe better prepare yourself before the event if you want, or keep learning after the event should you be interested in some of those technologies that we're going over. If you want to see more info about the event, you can go to dscucf.com/e/full-stack. Or you can RSVP at the link above, which is the same link except /RSVP instead of /E. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can go to our website, also just dscucf.com. You can join our Discord server, and if you have any questions, just let me know. It starts tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be the time that we keep for the rest of the series. So I hope I see you there. It's going to be a blast, and that's it. If Leilani wants to come on, go ahead, Leilani.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Sounds like a really exciting series. All right. So now to introduce our week 1 challenge. We challenge all of you to go out in your community and engage with other members of your local DSC and your community at large. So don't worry if you don't have a DSC at your school, just join one that is at a local school, or if you don't know of any local schools, you can join the PSU DSC. But our challenge to you is to start a discussion in your local DSC community about the solution challenge and, project ideas or the UN goals. So either start a discussion or participate in a discussion if someone has already started one. And this discussion can be, on your Slack channel or your Discord server if your club has one. And just really kind of try to get people start discussing about the solution challenge. And then the second part of the challenge is to find someone in your community who you can ask to do a quick interview about the solution challenge, to try to identify some problems that they're facing. You don't actually have to complete this interview this week. You just want to find someone and ask them. It's okay if, they don't respond, or if you schedule the meeting for like 2 weeks out. And then you don't get to interview them this week, that's totally fine. We just want you to, send some emails, start talking to people, start finding people in your community, and just get the ball rolling. And if we go to the next slide, I've got some, so here is the link to the contest form. And if you actually go on the contest form, we do have like all the detailed instructions for this. And we have some sample questions that you can ask during the interview. Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, so thank you, Lilani and PSU chapters for offering the challenge this week. Just make sure that you submit it before the deadline, which is the next workshop of us, so that you can have a chance to win the backpack, okay? And we're gonna announce the winner in our next workshop, so make sure to RSVP for us as well. Just a quick reminder for everyone, this is a timeline for the solution challenge this year. So make sure your team get ready, fill out the form, check out all of the resources that we offer from Google, and then let's work on it. And we are so excited to see what your team gonna be. Okay, thank you for everyone for coming back to to our workshop today, and we will see you next week. And Danny, do you want to go back to the live? Uh-oh, where's Danny? Uh-oh. Okay, so everyone, if you have any question, just drop it in the chat, and Danny and I and everyone else can totally answer it right now. So drop it.
Yeah, bring your questions. I'm going to bring everyone back on stage who you have seen throughout this presentation. So let's make sure to, thank them for their time, their participation in this amazing event for y'all. So let's welcome back everyone, right? So Aaron, Lee Young, Leilani, Alex, Evelyn, and myself. So feel free, everyone, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. While you do that, I am going to just briefly mention the raffle giveaway for the activity that was mentioned is a really cool developer student club backpack, and maybe there'll even be something inside of it for y'all to see as a surprise. So please definitely take this activity seriously. I want to give y'all a really cool DSC backpack for participating, as well as for you to show off to all of your friends, have them see Developer Student Club's logo and join some future events.
Yes, and it will be randomly drawn, right, Danny? So we'll just randomly pick one of you who participates in our challenge. So we just want you to participate in this, start the discussions and community engagement. Yeah.
That's right. Think of this as like a raffle ticket opportunity. When you submit, you're going to be entered with that one opportunity. So make sure to follow through with the activity, and your chance to win could be as soon as next week. So we'll see you all at the next event. So let's see here. Any questions coming up here? Oh, cool. So it looks like we got some thank yous from the audience. All right. Any final words for y'all from y'all before we wrap this up?
Thank you to everyone for coming. This was really fun. I was not expecting to have so much fun in the group activities. I'm so glad that I was able to be part of that. I think I was just blown away by people's creativity. My brain is just rolling with ideas now. So thank you all for that.
I see a question in chat from Michael that I'm going to go ahead and answer. So how would you recommend contacting others in your community? Should we send out emails, talk to neighbors, or talk to everyone we know? All right, there's a bunch of different avenues you can use. Something that I talked about a while ago, I don't remember what session it was in or what event, is what I call the triangle of trust. So if you're going to get like a business involved in a project, or maybe you're going to get your school involved and try to, team up with your university to solve some type of problem that is also, involves one of the 17 sustainable goals, maybe someone who knows someone, and you want to kind of work with them, that's what I call the triangle of trust. So because you know someone and they trust you, and then that person knows someone who trusts them, that person also trusts you. Triangle of trust kind of thing. So you know, find people who know people that you want to work with, and you can do that through LinkedIn, just word of mouth, talking to professors, a bunch of different things. There's a ton of avenues available to get connected with the right people, and the potential users for your solution. So just think outside the box and use every communication channel you have available, and you'll get connected to the right person.
Yeah, and also to add to that, you know, I contacted someone from, you know, a local, you know, student like lobbying organization in my area, and they were really happy to talk to me. So, you know, don't worry about, you know, bothering people is kind of what I want to say. Like people will be happy about this, I think, for the most part, because you're coming in and saying like, how can I help you? Basically, like, how can I provide this free service of like trying to solve the problems of your life with technology, right? So I think people are going to see this as a positive thing.
And if I might add another thing, if you are looking to also just reach out to the community in general, surveying is a good way to get feedback from your local community on like how exactly you can solve your problem or what exactly the people in your community are looking for. And you could always post these surveys on like community boards or like even clubs, or email it out to the people in charge of your clubs, kind of thing. Surveying is a good way to like prototype and, you know, just build your solutions off what people answer off of.
Yeah, these are all very valuable perspectives. I would advise you to listen to the wise men and women who have been helping you today. Reach out. There's no such thing as an unwelcome email. It may just be the wrong time for them to respond.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool, y'all. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap this up. So from Austin, from Dallas to, you know, all over the world, thank y'all so much for joining. I really appreciate y'all's time, and we look forward to seeing y'all in the next event.
Yes, see you next week, hopefully. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all for coming.
Bye.
Bye.